So today we're going to talk about fun ways to practice math with your preschoolers. So these are the objectives for today. We're going to learn how to help your child by doing and supporting math at home. And then you're going to gain some ideas and resources to support your role in your child's math education. If at any time you have a question or a comment, please just unmute yourself and feel free to share or ask. So making math a part of your family's life. There's lots of ways that you can make math part of your everyday life. First of all, you're your child's first and most important teacher. And research shows that families are an essential part of the learning process. So some things that you should do is always talk about math in positive ways. So as hard as it can be, try not to say that math is hard or that you don't like math, that you're not good at math. You always want to put it in a positive light. And a lot of times adding the word yet, like I know in pre-K, they're just starting out learning math, but as they go through their career in school, just saying things like, oh, wow, I don't know how to do that yet. Can you show me? Or I'll find out. Lots of times you can Google things to find out how to do it. The curriculum that is used and the way that math is taught is a little bit different than when I was in school. So even being a teacher, a lot of times I will have to look up the ways that is being shown at school so that I can show my child the same way. And sometimes when I'm trying to help her, she gets really upset with me. No, Mom, that's not how we do it. Even though that's the way I was taught. You can still get the same answer lots of different ways, but just making sure that you're showing the same way that is being taught at school. So like I said, you can always Google it. You can ask your child's teacher, lots of different ways. And knowing the standards that your child is learning in their specific grade. So you should always be aware of what they're learning and what they should be learning. And you can find that out again by going online or asking your child's teacher to show you. And the last way of thinking about math in your everyday life is noticing math in your everyday world. So using your environment to reinforce those math concepts around you. And we'll go over some of those things. So the goals in pre-K that they have for math are counting, shapes and measurement, sorting, patterns, and understanding numbers. So some things you can do for counting. You can count any kind of items, counting out loud, counting rocks, buttons, shells, petals on a flower, all kinds of things, toys, socks, things like that. Like I said, things that you see every day, just practicing counting. And with shapes, you can say things like, what shape does this plate look like? What shape is this sticker? What shape is this button? Things like that. When you're grocery shopping, you can have them help you count things like if you're buying apples. We need 3 apples. Can you help me count 3 apples into the bag? And then, grabbing an apple, 1, the next apple, 2, 3. Just practicing those everyday kind of counting things. How many people are in our family? How many shoes are in your closet? Sorting, some different ideas for sorting could be sorting by size. So sorting things that are small, medium, large, putting those in groups, sorting by color. Let's put all the things that are red in this pile, all the things that are blue in this. And it doesn't always have to be a pile either. You can talk about it. You can sort according to kinds of things. So let's sort the buttons here and the rocks here so that they start to see these different groups of things and what they have in common and what's different. Patterns. You can find patterns all over. So patterns on clothing, asking them, well, what shape or what color might come next in the pattern. And then thinking about length, like which string is longer, putting toys in order from the smallest to the largest toys. So when you start looking around, there's math all around us. And your children will start to see that too, and will start practicing those things too. I know I gave a lot of different examples there. I would welcome anyone to add anything that you do at home for any of these things that are pre-K math goals. So you can unmute yourself and share out. I would love to hear it.
We have a whole bunch of board game dice,
Mhm.
and we've got ones like with different amounts of sides, and some have dots on them, or some have like written out numbers. So we organize them by like color, by number, by shape, things like that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
With Maya, we do when we wash our hands, we count, because I always tell her when she washes her hands, she has to count 20 seconds or sing the happy birthday, and it works.
Excellent. Thank you. Corey, would you like to share anything?
We really like those color blocks that stick together. I can't think of the name of them, but you can make different patterns with those. And counting, it really helps out quite a bit.
Yes, thank you. Great example. All right, so if you picked up the packet of materials from Lemelson, in there was this Pete the Cat book, along with a couple others, but we're going to look at the Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons right now. So if you have that, I'm going to ask you to get it out and follow along. If you don't have it, no problem. And then also, if you would get out this page that has the shirt on it. Again, if you don't have materials today, no problem. You could either just use a piece of white paper and draw a shirt, or you could not use the shirt at all. It just makes it more fun to have that. And then also in your packet of materials, you had a little baggie that included some buttons. And so these buttons we're going to use them right now to go along with the Pete the Cat book. But again, if you don't have them, no problem. You can always just use other little materials you have at home, or you could just count along. And I included some extra ones just because these are really great to use for the skills that we talked about on the last page. I'm going to go back for 1 second. These can be used for counting. You can count how many buttons there are. You can count how many holes are in each button. You can also talk about the shapes, because I put some different shaped buttons in the baggies. You can sort them by size. Some of them are small, some are large. You could sort by shape. Some are squares, some are circles. Like I have a little bear in here, so you could sort by different shapes. And then you could sort by how many holes are in the button. Some of them have 2 in my bag. Some of them have 4. You might have some that just have 1 or none. So you could sort by that also. Lots of different fun things you can do with these buttons. So if you have the buttons, if you would get them out and put 4 of the buttons on the shirt. So I'm going to do that right now. 1, 2, and then count them as you're putting them on the shirt with your child. Or if you're not with your child right now, you can practice this when you're with them. 3, 4. So I have 4 buttons on my shirt right now. So I'll give you just a second to put your buttons on your shirt and get out your book. So while you're getting those out, I just wanted to remind you that both math and reading are so, so important. Today, we're really focusing on math, but they go hand in hand. And combining reading and math is a very powerful way to reinforce skills, to spend time together and have fun. So when you use objects to like play out what is happening in the book, that makes it even more fun for everyone. That's why I included the buttons and the shirt today. Your children are roughly about between the ages of like 2 and 4 or 5, and they generally use math through simple counting. They're just learning numbers and counting. Um, and that helps them to bring some kind of order to the world around them. So by reading your children counting books and singing songs and playing counting games, you're having fun with them and numbers and giving them a foundation for success in reading and in math. So what right now, normally when we're in person, I love to read this book out loud, but so I can show you in the best way, I'm going to show you a video of someone else reading it so you can see all the pictures and hear properly. While the person is reading, I want you to follow along, and with your shirt, what is going to happen, a little spoiler, is some of Pete's buttons are going to pop off. And so when he has a button pop off, if you would take a button off of your shirt that you have or your item or whatever it is that you have at home, take that off and then really reinforce what the book is saying with how many buttons are left and the counting. All right, I'm going to start that now. Please let me know if you can't hear it or you have trouble seeing.
Pete the Cat and His 4 Groovy Buttons, written by Eric Litwin, art by James Dean.
Pete the Cat put on his favorite shirt with 4 big, colorful, round, groovy buttons. He loved his buttons so much, he sang this song.
My buttons, my 4 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 4 groovy buttons.
Oh no! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left?
3.
4 minus 1 equals 3. Did Pete cry?
Goodness, no.
Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song.
My 3 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. My buttons.
Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left?
2.
3 minus 1 equals 2. Did Pete cry?
Goodness, no.
Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song.
My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons.
Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left?
1.
2 minus 1 equals 1. Did Pete cry?
Goodness, no.
Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song.
My button, my 1 groovy button. My button, my 1 groovy button.
Oh no! The last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left?
0.
1 minus 1 equals 0. Did Pete cry?
Goodness, no.
Buttons come and buttons go. Pete looked down at his buttonless shirt. And what do you think he saw? His belly button! And he kept on singing his song.
My button, still have my belly button. My button, still have my belly button. My button, still have my belly button.
I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness, no. I'm singing.
Okay, so I just love that book and that video and everything. So even if you don't have books at home, you can always Google it. And there are tons and tons of books on YouTube that are read aloud. A lot of times you can find them read aloud by the author. That's really fun too. I just recommend that if you are going to go on YouTube or Google it, that you view it first before showing your child, because sometimes, as we all know, there can be some things that are not appropriate. So just a little warning there. So I hope that you enjoyed that and that you did the buttons with it. Kids love this book, like I said, and they will sing along and they will want to hear it millions of times. So I'm sorry for that. In fact, we have this book, and I read it aloud to my daughter. We did this fun game, and now she's 9. And when she saw it here for me today for this class, she said, "Oh my gosh, is that for me? Can we read Pete the Cat?" So even when they get older, they still love Pete the Cat. I love Pete the Cat. He's one of my favorites. So again, just making it really fun and having an activity to go with it makes it so that when you have to read it over and over and over again, it still is a lot of fun for you and for them. And they're learning so much. Do you have any questions or comments? Maybe your favorite book to read aloud? All right. One more thing, just interacting with the book as you're reading, even if you don't have materials with it, asking those questions. How many buttons did Pete lose? And also what I really like about this story is that it has, he's not crying about losing the buttons. So that's a nice lesson to talk about as well. And I love the belly button at the end. As you can tell, I love this book. All right. So on to the next thing that is worked on in pre-K. We talked about finding things everywhere to count, and you can find things everywhere to sort as well. So I put this picture up here of just a goldfish sorting and counting thing that I found. And so if you have the colored goldfish, you can always count and sort those. One thing is with the bag of goldfish, sometimes you get like 55, and that's quite a bit for your child if they're 4 or 5. You want to start with maybe 1 through 10, and then if you feel that they're confident with 1 through 10, bumping it up to 20, but not going too high. We don't want to go all the way to 100, before they're in kindergarten. They will be working with 100 once they get into kindergarten, but starting out smaller and then moving on as they get to know those numbers and what they mean. And something that we talk about with counting is one-to-one correspondence. So for example, this is 1 button. So when we're counting the buttons on the shirt or items or things like that, a lot of times it helps if they can touch it and move it. So as they put it down, they count 1, and then they touch the next one, 2, touching the next one, 3, and then 4. And then you can have them touch them and count them as they go. 1, 2, 3, 4. A lot of times when they're learning, they'll go 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're not touching each one. So making sure they have that 1-to-1, knowing that that is worth 1, And when we put one more, now there's two, things like that. Counting with your finger, touching items and moving really helps with that. Same thing with sorting. Actually being able to touch things and sort them, put them into different groups really helps them understand. Again, if you have goldfish or something else, having them sort them into piles by color, size, shape, the number of holes in the buttons, for example. Lots of different ideas for counting and sorting. The next one is talking about shapes. So again, they're learning about different kinds of shapes. So I included in your bag of materials, and if you don't have it, no worries, you can always draw it. So there is a packet that's stapled, and then there's also one that is there on its own. So what I want us to do this morning is practice with the one that's there on its own, because I have this one in the packet as well for you to do with your child. I wanted us to do it together on the Zoom this morning so that you have an idea, which I'm sure you already do, but so you can practice it before you practice with your child. So on this page is a circle. And so what you want to do is put all of the things that you see here that are shaped like a circle, and you would cut them out and glue them onto the squares there. So if you don't have scissors, you can always just look at the pictures and you can draw them into the squares there. So I'm going to give you just about, let's take 5 minutes, and I'm going to have you, like I said, either cut them out and glue them with the glue stick that was included, and then we'll come back together and I'll have you show me if you would like. Or if you don't have this, I will hold this in front of the screen so that you can just draw it. So like I said, I'll give you about 5 minutes to go ahead and do that. As soon as you've finished, if you will turn your camera on and show me, I would appreciate it. So go ahead and start working on this one.
I'm sorry, so we could do either the circle or the square, right? Oops, I think you're muted.
Thank you. The one that's single by itself is the circle one.
Mm-hmm.
So you can work on that one. If you want to work on one of the other ones, you can. It's up to you.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. You know what I'm seeing too on the screen? I totally forgot. On the screen, you can see the shapes, so I don't need to hold it up in front of the camera. You can just choose one of those and draw them if you would like. So you can have your children obviously color these as well. That's fun. And then there's a little space down here at the bottom. They can draw some more things that are in the shape of a circle. And you can continue adding to it also. Anytime you see something that's a circle, you can add it to the drawing on the bottom. All right, well, you can show us when you're ready. Just turn your camera on when you're ready to show us if you want to. Okay. Like I said, I included some other shapes in the packet. So there are triangles, we did circles, there's rectangles, squares. So you can choose whichever one you want and whichever order. You don't have to do them all at once. You can space it out so that it's more fun and they don't get overwhelmed. And I saw that Ashley drew the pictures in. That's perfect. If you don't have scissors handy, just drawing them in and then drawing more on the bottom, like I said. All right. One other thing that's really important with math is asking open-ended questions. So I put some examples of some open-ended questions that you could ask your child while you're working with math. When you are sorting things, you don't always have to tell them how you want them to sort them, like, oh, let's sort by color or let's sort by size. Just allow them, give them some items and say, oh, let's sort these, let's put them into different groups. and then asking them to explain to you how they sorted them. As a teacher, when we did sorting activities, either with words or with objects, I was always amazed. I would look at a group of things that children had sorted and I would think, oh no, they're not understanding. They didn't sort them properly. And when I asked them, how did you sort them? When they explained, it was amazing the ways that they could find to sort them that I didn't even see. So don't always assume that they're not understanding how to sort. Ask them to explain it to you before you like correct them. Having them explain how they did it. And that is true with all different kinds of math, even all the way up into college. Our children are really expected to explain how they got their answers. So starting that early really will help them be able to verbalize and talk about how they got their answer or what they did. And then asking them, well, can you sort them a different way? And then letting them figure out another way to sort items. Asking them, well, which group is the biggest or smallest? And then having them count them, count the different groups, and then matching the number that they count to writing the number when they're ready. So if they make a group of 4, having them remember again, touching them or moving them to count 4 and then writing the number 4 down if they're ready. And then again, just being able to have them explain. So show me what you did. Show me how you got this answer. So those open-ended, not saying yes or no to your questions, really having them think about how they found the answer or how they sorted or things like that helps them be able to think mathematically.